actually finished a practice with my teacher in Austin because, as is sort of traditional, I always do. After every presidential election so far for the last few years, I've done a class with Kylie at practice after the election, and it always kind of makes me feel better. So today's practice is going to be a little bit slower and sort of more grounding. We're taking a break from our beginner's practice for this week, just for the time being, because I think we could all use a little bit of calming and grounding after everything that's kind of going on and how the world is shaking out. So feel free to use whatever props you feel like you want. I've got my blanket, a bolster, and a block, just because I'm feeling like I need some support. And the first thing we're going to come to do is just come down to sit. And, you know, we all face this measure of uncertainty in our lives every single day, right? We all face this sort of question of what comes next. And I think one of the big things right now is just being able to sit with that uncertainty, is to be able to sit with kind of like this question mark. And so today's practice is going to work on giving you guys the to be in the place that you're in right now. Maybe try to move through it, maybe, you know, kind of give it a little bit of space to breathe and move. But the main point of class today is just to give us time to sort of process and be where we are. So come down to an easy seat, whatever that looks like for you. And what I'd like you to do is just for a moment, take a deep breath and close your eyes. And as you exhale, allow your body weight to come down onto the mat and just rest. You don't have to hold yourself up. You don't have to knit ribs in. You don't have to carry all this weight. But just allow your body to rest on the mat. And feel that gentle inflow and outflow of breath, letting it rhythmically move through your mouth or your nose, down into your throat and down into your belly. And today we're going to practice a lot down on the ground. We may do some standing poses, but most of our work is going to be done down on the ground. And we're going to go a little slower and investigate a little bit more deeply some of the poses that can help us feel connected to our bodies and can help us feel patient and grounded in this moment. So just take a few more breaths and see if you can send your breath to places where you might be holding tension. So I know, like right now, I'm feeling it right in my jaw. I'm feeling it in the tops of my shoulders. And with my exhale, what I'm going to do is send that breath to those two areas and just let them release a little bit more. They're probably not going to completely release, but I'm just going to let them kind of soften and just let go. And then when you're ready, we're going to do something a little different from what we normally do. I'd like you to take your hands to heart center and let your thumbs rest against your sternum as your sternum rests back up into your thumbs. And we're going to chant Om 3 times. You can feel free to chant it in your head or out loud, but I'll chant it along so that you can follow along with me. And there's a thing in yoga called the Om cycle. There's 3 parts to the Om, the beginning, middle, and end, but it's continuous and it's always continually evolving. So it's circular. And it feels like it's the right sort of embodiment of where we are right now. We're in this transition. We're in this change. So what I'd like you to do is take a deep inhale and then exhale, let it out. And then inhale to chant. And just let your breath return to its regular cadence. Gently drop your hands from heart center. Take your hands back down to your thighs. Lower your chin towards your chest. And then gently open your eyes and soften your gaze. And from here, what I'd like you to do is just roll the shoulder blades down and then find length between the top rim of your pelvis and the base of your rib cage. So almost like you're being tugged upward. And from here, I have my left foot in front. Actually, before we get there, let's just go ahead and take both legs out long in front. Flex the soles of your feet and cross the left foot over the right. Bend your knees and just come into an easy cross-legged pose. That'll just get us all on the same side. And then here, let your knees drop a little bit lower than your hips. Take an inhale to get long. And then exhale, just walk your fingertips out in front of you. And you can feel free to come as high or as low as you'd like. If you feel like you need it, you can always just grab a block and place it underneath your elbows. And then here, once you get down onto your elbows, take your hands to your head and just let your chin sink towards the mat and soften your breath. Take a few breaths like this, just letting the evenness of the inhale and the exhale expand against your legs. And then when you're ready, you can release the hold of your head, walk your fingertips back towards your knees, and come back up to sit. And if you have that block in front of you, just place it off to the left or right. Take both legs out long, come into that Dandasana, flex through the soles of the feet. You can take your hands back behind your hips. And then this time you're going to cross that right ankle over the left and draw those legs in so that your feet come under your knees, coming into that easy seated pose. And then here, once again, finding space between the base of the rib cage and the top of the pelvis, lifting the heart. And then on your exhale, you can start to walk your hands forward and just fold down over your legs. And again, if you need that block as a place to sit up and rest your elbows on, use that. But if you don't, go ahead and drop your elbows down to the mat or to the ground. And then just cradle your head and see if you can release the shoulder blades so that you're not pressing down through the elbows. You're not actively leaning into the elbows. You're letting the heart sink and soften towards the mat. And just finding a couple of deep breaths here, allowing those shoulder blades to separate on the back of the body, allowing your hands to hold your head. And once you've taken a couple of breaths, allowing the expansion and contraction of your breath into your lap, you can slowly start to walk your fingertips back towards your shins and come on up to sit. From here, once again, find that nice long length. And if you want, close your eyes and imagine as if there's a plumb line that's been dropped from the crown of your head down through the back of your spine. Inhale to get long. And on your exhale, go ahead and twist from your midline and come over towards the right side, taking your fingertips, right fingertips back behind you and your left fingertips to your right knee. So you're gazing out over your right shoulder. Take a couple inhales and a couple exhales. And then on your next exhale, come back through center. And we're going to twist over to the opposite side. So if you'd like, just go slowly. Take that right hand to the left knee. Left hand comes behind you. Gaze back over your shoulder. And do me a favor, don't crank on that knee. Don't press down and crank. What I'd like you to do is just twist from the midline. Gaze over your shoulder. And then breathe. And once you get to a place where your body wants to stop, just stay there and let that right hand just rest on your knee, offering a little support. Take a couple deep breaths here. And then exhale and come back to center. Take both legs out long in front of you into that Dandasana. Flex through the soles of the feet. Find length in the spine and let the backs of the legs, the backs of the thighs drop. And then from here, just go ahead and swing your knees around. If you're sitting on a blanket like I am, you can place that off away from you and come onto your knees. So you're just going to come into hero's pose for a moment. So feet are together underneath my butt. My knees are together. And what I'd like you to do here is, again, find that length. At the same time that you're pressing down into your shins, allow the spine to get long. And then from here, just do that same twisting motion. So we're going to go over towards the right first and twist from your midline. So you'll notice that I'm not grabbing a hold and cranking. I'm actually using my core to twist. And then taking my left hand down to my right knee and taking my right hand back behind me. If I need it, I can grab that block and just place it so that the floor comes up to meet me. And again, finding that length, finding that stack. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, release the grip of your hands. So stay in that twist. And then you're going to just take those hands out in front of your chest. So you're coming off to a sort of strange side bend, right? Walk your fingertips out. Press the palms down into the mat, and then press down and away and get a nice long side stretch into that left side. So from the base of the left armpit out into the left hip. Press, press, press. If you want to go a little deeper, you can pick up that left hand and either grab the right wrist or stack your hands on top of one another and take the twist a little deeper. And here, see if you can really get that down on your heels. Take 2 more inhales in this position and 2 more exhales. And then on your inhale, go ahead and walk your hands back in towards your legs and then slowly come back up and unwind. And just take a second here in the center to allow the head to stack over the heart, shoulder blades drop down, feel the grounding through the shins. And sometimes I just like to close my eyes and feel what's going on in my body. And you can feel free to do that at any time in your practice. From here, twist from your core. So as if your rib cage is going over towards the left side this time. Twist as much as you can without using any kind of leverage. And then take your right hand to your left knee and left fingertips back behind you. And if you like, you can just gaze out over your shoulder. Take a couple deep breaths. And then on your exhale, go ahead and pick up your hands off your knee and off the floor. And keeping your chest moving in that direction, start to walk your fingertips out off to the left side and come into that same position we were in before, letting the palms come down to the mat, pressing down and away, and getting the hips to sink onto the heels. And here, if this feels good, if this feels like enough, stay right here. If you'd like to go a little further, you can either take your right hand and grab your left wrist, or you can stack your right hand over your left. And breathe into that space from the base of the right armpit down to the top of your hip. Take another inhale here and another exhale. Go ahead and unwind your hands, walk your fingertips back towards your knees, come back up to sit, and then shift around so that you come back down to sit on your butt. We're going to come into a Baddha Konasana or bound angle pose. So soles of the feet come together. And here you have a choice. You can either choose to draw those feet in towards your groin or you can press them out. And what I'd like you to do is go ahead and grab a hold of the ankles and see if in the hip sockets you can turn the femur bones out. So turn the thigh bones out as if you're drawing down, as if someone's like taking the outside edges of your pants and just pulling them down. And then once you have that, see if you can lift up out of the rim of the pelvis and find some length and some space. And I like to grab hold of my ankles here just because it gives me a little bit of traction, it gives me a little bit of lift. Take one more breath. And then exhale, and you can draw those knees closed like you're closing a book. Stretch both feet out in front of you, and if you'd like, just pedal the knees left and right. And then from here, we're going to shift around onto all fours for a moment. Movement going. So what I'd like you to do is just at first come onto all fours and start to shift your hips around in a circle. Just allowing different pressure points on the knees to come into awareness, allowing the different pressure points on the hands to come into awareness. Not really focusing on the shoulders here, but really more focusing on the rotation of the hips. So allowing the hips to dip left and right. And then here, once you have that, go ahead and press your hips back towards your heels. Come into a nice deep child's pose, keeping the legs together at this point. We're going to revisit this pose a couple times as we work through this practice. Then come back forward. Take your hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips, tuck your toes, lift your hips, press up and back, downward facing dog. So this is our first downward dog of class. And it may feel a little bit squidgy for you, but here I just want you to pedal out your hips, pedal out your heels, shift your body weight left and right. And notice the connection of the hands and the feet to the mat, that sense of groundedness, that sense of connection that we have. And then once you've found a little bit of movement, once you kind of shifted back and forth, come into a stable and solid downward facing dog. Take a couple of deep breaths here. And then when you're ready, bend your knees, look between your hands, and scrunch your butt down towards your heels so you're in this loaded sort of child's pose position. My knees are not on the ground. I'm floating. And then what I'm going to do is just exhale and step one foot forward and then the other. Take an inhale to halfway lift and an exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. And then exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to gently halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step back, downward facing dog. And once again, just kind of pedal it out. Let the heels drop left and right. And then on your next inhale, lift that right leg up, back behind you. And then exhale, step your right leg to the outside of your right hand at the front of the mat. And then what you're going to do is just walk your hands out off to the side. Let that back foot come down so that the outside edge is parallel to the back edge of your mat. And then here, press your hands down and forward and draw your upper inner thighs back and apart. I'm coming into sort of a wide-legged warrior, two-legged, downward-facing dog. And here, make sure that you're activating through that outside of your right hip so that you're drawing that outside right knee back. Take another inhale and another exhale. And then slowly walk your hands back inside that front foot. Step back. High plank just for a second. Hold that plank. Draw your belly button towards your spine. Press the ground away. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, drop to your knees, lower your chest, come all the way down to the mat. And here, walk your elbows underneath your shoulders at the front of your mat, palms face down. So this is a nice, easy little Sphinx pose, and you'll feel a little bit of kind of stretch in the front line of your body and your belly. If you want, you can separate your feet a bit wider to make it more comfortable in your lower back. And here, what I'd like you to do is maybe close your eyes and imagine that your breath is expanding down into the mat. Imagine bringing your heart, the back of your heart, through towards the front of your chest, and you'll feel your heart lift just slightly. Take another inhale here. And then on your exhale, what I'd like you to do is tuck your toes and without sort of swaying into the back, activate through the legs, through the core, and lift up into a forearm plank. We're going to spend 3 breaths here. And after your 3rd breath, come back down, release, find that Sphinx pose one more time. Lift the heart. Feel that back of the heart move towards the front of the heart. Feel that belly expand down into the mat. And we're going to do that one more time. So tuck your toes, engage. So tip your pelvis slightly down like we are, and it's kind of hard to see, but swayed back like we are in Sphinx. What I'd like you to do is tip the pubic bone down towards the mat a little bit to engage the core, and then lift up into that forearm plank. Again, 3 breaths. And then release, drop to the knees, find that Sphinx, draw the back of the heart towards the front of the heart. Take an inhale to get a little bit longer. And then exhale, take your hands underneath your shoulders, tuck your toes, press your hips up and back, downward facing dog. Let your breath kind of even out. And then once again, bend your knees, load up the legs, shift your hips back towards the heels so that you're in this sort of lifted child's pose. And then on your exhale, just slowly walk up towards the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step back, find your downward facing dog. Take a couple breaths here. If you need to, just pedal out your feet. And then on your next inhale, take your left foot towards the sky. Inhale here. And exhale, step that left foot to the outside of your left hand. And then spin down that right foot so it comes to be about parallel with the back edge of your mat. And then walk your hands off to the side of your mat at about, say, like 1 o'clock if you're looking at a clock. And then press palms down and forward and come once again into this funky warrior 2-leg downward facing dog. Drive through the legs and make sure that you're activating through this outside line of the hip. So from the left knee to the left hip, press down and away. Make sure you're drawing that knee back. You're not letting it collapse in. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, come back to your mat, roll up on the ball of your back foot, and then step back. Find that high plank. Take an inhale here, and an exhale. One more inhale. And on your exhale, lower to your knees. And then come down onto your chest on the floor. Take a couple of inhales here and get your elbows down underneath your shoulders. Palms can be now face down or face up, whichever way you prefer. Face up just changes the way your muscles work in your shoulders, so give it a shot. Take a breath, then tilt your pelvis slightly towards the mat, engage through the front of the body, and press down, come into that forearm plank. 3 breaths. And then exhale, knees come down. Find that Sphinx pose once again. So think about drawing the back of the heart through to the front of your chest. Maybe close your eyes and find a little bit more length. And feel the expansion of your breath down into the mat. We'll do that forearm plank one more time, and you can choose either palms up or palms down. I went with palms up last time. I'm going to go with palms down this time. Tuck your toes, and here, engage to the belly so that your pelvis tips towards the mat, and then lift up. 3 breaths. And then exhale, release, drop to the knees. And once again, find that nice Sphinx pose. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, take your hands underneath your shoulders. Press yourself up and back, downward facing dog. Take a couple of breaths here. Let your head hang heavy. Find your grounding. Find your stability. Strong legs, strong hands connected to the earth. Take an inhale here and an exhale. And then bend your knees. Sink your hips towards your heels. Don't let your knees come down. Be loaded in the arms and the legs. And then when you're ready, just slowly start to walk yourself forward. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep up and overhead. And then exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step back, downward facing dog. Take an inhale and an exhale. Inhale to take that right foot towards the sky. And then exhale, step your right foot to the outside edge of your right hand. Spin down that back heel. Come into that weird warrior leg downward dog. I really like this pose. It feels really good, especially in my hips after I've been sitting a lot. Really think about drawing those upper inner thighs back and apart. And really press your hands down into the mat. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, go ahead and walk your hands back to the inside of that right foot. You can come back up onto the ball of your left foot. And then drop that left knee down to the mat. From here, untuck your toes. And walk that left hand slightly closer to your right foot. Take your right hand to your right knee. And then just twist through your upper body, gazing over towards your right side. Take a couple breaths here. This is a pretty intense stretch into the front of that left hip flexor. If it feels good, if you'd like to add on, go ahead and take that right arm back, bend your left foot and see if you can grab a hold of it somewhere. I'm going to grab the heel today. Now my right knee is going to come off to the right side and kind of flare out, and I'm going to actually rotate my shoulders a little bit more and just let my body do what it wants. So I want to do a back bend here. I'm going to do a back bend. Take another inhale and then exhale, and don't slingshot your foot. Just let it go and then control it back down to the mat. Take both hands to the inside of that right foot. Tuck your back toes and then step back into a high plank. Take an inhale here and an exhale, and then one more inhale and exhale. Drop to your knees, lower to your belly, and then take your fingertips off to the left and right. Tent your hands so that palms are lifted, and you're gonna, instead of letting your elbows drop down towards your ribs, draw your elbows towards the sky. And then from here, press down actively into your feet so that the tops of your knees lift a little bit off the mat. And then inhale and lift your heart as high as you like. Take a couple breaths. And then exhale to release. Inhale, walk your hands back under your shoulders. Find that nice Sphinx pose. I find that this helps with, especially when I'm feeling super anxious or ungrounded, this belly down back bend lets me feel connected and supported at the same time. Take a couple breaths. You know where we're going next. Tuck your toes. Engage through your core so that your pelvis tilts towards the mat. And then press down into your elbows if you'd like. Instead of coming all the way up onto that forearm plank, you can drop to the knees and just engage the core. 3 breaths. And then exhale, come back down. Find that Sphinx. Draw the back of the heart towards the front of the heart. And then exhale, get your hands back under your shoulders. Press your hips up and back, downward facing dog. And just take a couple breaths. Let your feet pedal out. Maybe move your head more towards the earth. Find some release in that low back. Bend your knees. Sink your hips towards your heels. Really load those legs. Knees hover. And then exhale. And you can hop or step or jump, whatever you feel like, to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead, come on up to stand. And exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale deeply, sweep your arms up, ground down through your feet. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Engage, fold. Inhale the halfway lift, activating from the backs of the hamstrings, like we've learned in our previous classes. And then exhale, let your hands come down to the mat. Step back into your downward dog. Again, taking a little liberty in downward dog. See what it feels like to separate the feet so that they're wider than hips distance. Maybe the inner heels get heavier. Maybe they don't. But just kind of experiment with it a little bit here. Take a couple breaths. And then walk your feet back together at the middle of your mat. Step your right foot slightly more towards the midline of your body. And on your next inhale, take that left foot up towards the sky. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, step that left foot to the outside of your left hand. Spin that back foot down. Walk your hands off to about, say, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And find that weird down dog, low lunge, kind of weird leg thing. This pose doesn't really have a technical term, so we're just making it up. Again, make sure that you're activating through that outside line of your left leg. Take a couple inhales here, press down and away into the mat, into the ground. And then after your next exhale, walk your hands back in towards the center of your mat. Drop your right knee. And here, untuck your toes, let the foot come to the mat. And then you can take your left hand to your left knee and slowly press down into that left knee and rotate the rib cage through. So a little bit like what we did when we were seated. What I'm doing is I'm taking the rotation first through my ribs and then pressing down into my leg. So you can stay here, actively pressing down into that right arm. Or if you'd like to go a little further, you can reach back with that left hand, bend the knee, and grab for that foot. And here, I'm letting my right knee come out to the side. I'm rolling to the outside edge of my left leg. I'm rolling to the outside edge of my left foot. And here, I'm going to let that left shoulder drop back, maybe find a little bit of a back bend. Let my hips sink towards the mat. Just kind of go with it. Take a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, come back through center. Onto the mat. Lift your back knee. Step your left foot back to meet your right. Find that high plank. 3 inhales, 3 exhales. And then drop to your knees. Untuck your toes. Lower down onto your belly. Take your fingertips off the mat. Once again, tent those fingertips as if a little mouse could live under your palms. Draw your elbows rather than towards your rib cage, so dropping the elbows. Draw your elbows towards the sky. And then actively press down into the tops of your feet. So much so that the knees lift slightly. Then engage to the belly, engage to the back body. Lift your heart. Lift your chest as much as you feel. Take a couple of inhales and a couple of exhales and see if you can drop the shoulders away from the ears. And then allow the belly to come back down. Take your elbows underneath your shoulders. Find that nice, almost yin kind of Sphinx pose. Press down through the elbows and draw the back of the heart towards the chest. Lift the head a little bit. Take 2 nice deep breaths here, feeling the expansion of your belly down into the mat. And then, when you're ready, take some of that arch out of your back. Tuck your toes. Tip your pelvis more towards the earth. Press down. Find your forearm plank. 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3. And then release. Find that Sphinx pose once again. Just allowing the belly to drop, allowing the hips to drop, drawing the back of the heart towards the front of the heart. Take 1 more inhale. And then on your exhale, take your hands back underneath your shoulders. Press your hips up and back, downward facing dog. Inhale and exhale. See if you can find length in the spine, in the back body. Take another inhale and another exhale. Bend your knees, load your hips up over your heels like you're going to spring forward. Really get your butt kind of low. Activate through the legs. And then when you're ready, either hop, jump, skip, however you want to get to the top of your mat, feel free to. Inhale, halfway lift, engaging through the back body. So we're not pressing into our legs to lift. We're actually using the core. Exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. And then exhale, hands come down to heart center. Now, if you have a pillow or your blanket, I'm going to use my blanket today, or a bolster, whichever you like. Go ahead and grab it and roll it up. My blanket's kind of a mess, so I'm going to refold it real quick, make sure that it's not quite such a mess. And just roll it up so that you have a good size roll that you can just let rest across your hips. Now, you guys have seen this move before. I really like it, especially after a relatively warming practice, as a way to kind of release the low back. So what you're going to do is just hold it across your hips. Take your feet to hip width distance on your mat. Press that blanket down into your hips and then hinge forward, capturing that blanket in between your belly and the top of your thighs. And then let your shoulder blades round. Let your head reach towards the mat. Take a few deep breaths. If your hands come down to the mat, great. If they don't, no big deal. And your knees don't have to be totally straight. They can be slightly bent. And that's totally okay too. And then just go ahead and grip opposite elbows with your hands. Let your head hang heavy. Take an inhale here. Then an exhale. And then release. And switch the grip of your hands. So opposite hands to opposite elbows. Take a couple breaths. Maybe thinking about drawing those upper inner thighs back and apart. Kind of scrubbing the heels out towards the outer edges of the mat. Exhale to release. And then slowly, like you're uncoiling your spine, what I'd like you to do is just tuck your tail, let that blanket fall whenever it falls, and slowly, 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 slowly roll yourself back up. All the way up to standing. And once you come to stand, take your arms behind your back and take your left hand, reach over, grab your right forearm or elbow. Palms are facing towards the back of the room. Draw your shoulder blades together and down your back. And then from here, just gently tip your right ear towards your right shoulder. Nice little shoulder and neck stretch. Take a couple of breaths. And then when you're ready, go ahead and lift that head back up through center and release the grip of your arms. Bend your right elbow, reach over, grab for your left forearm. Draw your shoulder blades down and back. And then gently tip your left ear towards your left shoulder. Take a couple breaths here, just softening, allowing the stretch to go through the jaw, the side of the neck, the upper shoulder. Take a couple of breaths. And then exhale and release. And just for a moment, take your arms out to the side, left and right, parallel to the earth, palms face down. And in your shoulder socket, turn the arm bones up so that you're broadening across the chest and you're opening up from fingertip to fingertip. If you like, from here, you can start to draw the arm bones back just slightly. So just doing a nice little opening, chest opening stretch here. Take an inhale. And then exhale, draw your arms back so they are in line with your shoulders. And then rotate the palms back down. Take the hands back next to your hips. And from here, take a walk up to the top of your mat. Your feet go wider than hips width distance and turn your toes out so that they point towards the edges, the corners of your mat. Take your hands to heart center. And then slowly and as controlled as you can, Gently start to bend your knees, sink your hips towards your heels. Come down into a malasana squat first. Maybe elbows come to the inside of your thighs. And then slowly set your hips back. I'm eventually going to do that in a graceful way, but it's not there yet. If you still have that blanket or if you want to use your bolster, feel free to grab those. I'm going to use my blanket today actually because I kind of like how small it is. And what I'm going to do is make my roll a little neater and place it long ways against the base of my tailbone so that my upper body will come to lie down on that blanket. Bend your knees, plant your feet on the mat, take your fingertips back, and slowly lower yourself down onto that blanket. Maybe your head is not on the blanket, maybe it is. Whatever kind of adjustments you may need to make, feel free to make those changes and move yourself around on the blanket. And here, just keep your knees bent, maybe walk your feet in closer towards your hips. And then just take your arms to cactus pose. Let the shoulder blades draw towards one another. You'll feel the resistance of the blanket in the middle of your spine. But just let your breath kind of come in and out very evenly, very steadily. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes and allow that breath to just kind of wash over you. Feel the expansion of your rib cage, especially in the belly. So I know that when I'm waiting, when I'm in this uncomfortable space where I don't feel grounded, where I don't feel like I know what's going to happen next, in this unknown spot that we just have to kind of get through, I find that I always want to rush through it. But the truth of it is that there is something to be learned about the space in between. The space in between breaths, the space in between our inhale and our exhale, the space in between things happening in our lives. And we're definitely in one of those in-between phases right now. But here, what I'd like you to do is just pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to the support of the blanket beneath your body, beneath your shoulders. Allow the evenness of your breath to wash over you and notice the pauses in between. Notice what feels good. Notice what your breath does to your body. For example, as I'm laying here, I notice that as I exhale, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a massage down my spine. And it's kind of nice. So take a couple more breaths here. And after your second breath, you can just drop your knees over to the left or right and roll off that blanket. Press down to sit up and just get that blanket on out of your way. Or if you'd like to use it as a pillow, we're going to come down into Shavasana shortly. So just keep it kind of close. Go ahead and come back onto your backs. And here, just take your hands to your belly. Your feet are bent, or your knees are bent, and feet are planted on the mat. You're going to pick up that right foot, cross it over your left thigh. Take your right hand to your right thigh. And here, press away and up towards the sky, or up towards your knee, to just kind of draw that knee away from your shoulder. Take a breath. Allow that right lung to expand down into your pelvis. Feel the stretch on the right side. And then inhale to release the pressure on that right thigh. And exhale, press again. Just kind of giving yourself a little bit of a massage, a little bit of movement with your breath. Inhale to release, last time. Exhale, press that right thigh away and up. Just actively drawing the inner thigh away from the inner groin. And then exhale to release. Uncross that right leg. Plant that right foot back down on the mat. Pick up your left foot, cross it over your right thigh. Take your left hand to the left thigh and press it down and away from your shoulder. So sliding the hand towards the knee. I guess it's up and away, really. Take a breath. And on your next inhale, release the pressure on that left thigh. Allow that left thigh to kind of rotate more closely towards your torso. And then exhale, press that thigh away and up towards the ceiling. Inhale to release. Final time, exhale. Press, 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 press away and up. Take an inhale. And go ahead and release. Uncross those legs. Take your feet wide. Let your knees knock towards one another. Take your hands to your belly. And here, just start to drop your left knee down towards the middle of the mat. Let your right knee kind of flare out towards the right side. Just stretching down into the IT band. If you'd like, you can take that left arm up overhead and really reach so that you're getting a down into the front of your left knee. Take an inhale here and then exhale, come back through center. Drop that right knee down towards the midline of your mat. Reach the right arm up overhead. Finding that stretch from the tip of the right knee up through the tip of the fingertips. And then inhale, come back through center. And exhale, draw both knees in towards your chest. Give yourself just a little bit of compression into the back body, maybe rotating the knees in circles on the ceiling, allowing everything to kind of settle down, settle in. And then for the next 2 breaths, what I'd like you to do is focus all of your anxiety, all of your discomfort, all of your weightingness, if you will, into turning into this tight, 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 tight ball for 2 breaths. So really scrunch up. Tighten all the muscles in your body. Tighten everything, your face, your shoulders, your fingers, your toes, your belly. Tight, 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 tight. And then exhale and release. Take up space. Let your body drop down to the mat. And if you'd like, you can reach over and grab your blanket, your bolster, your block, and find a more comfortable way to move into Shavasana. Just listen to what your body is saying, the tone of your body and your emotions right now. Listen to the sound of your breath moving in and out. And listen momentarily to any of the sounds that come up around you. People moving around, family members walking through the house. And recognize that this space is the space in between. This time of uncertainty has plenty of lessons. And instead of rushing through it, just trying to acknowledge it and be with it and exist in parallel to it, while not trying to change it, while staying grounded, while staying connected, while still doing our good work, is everything we need right now. Allow your body to soften and rest. Feel the back body soften into the ground, and any tension that you may have held, whether it was in your shoulders, your jaw, your teeth, allow it to just release. Holding on to that tension in this moment isn't going to make anything change any faster. It's not going to get us through this phase any more quickly. What we need to do is simply be where we are and know that we can return to this practice when we need it. Return to our breath, return to our connection to the ground, feel grounded, feel connected. And know that as we move through this Om cycle, as we move through this continuous renewal, things will change. When you're ready, slowly invite waves of movement back into your body, wiggling your fingers, your toes, maybe rolling your head from one side to the other. And then when you're ready, take a nice long good morning stretch. Allow the fingertips to reach towards the sky, toe tips to reach towards the opposite end of the mat. And then on your exhale, roll on over to the left or right. Just pausing for a moment. Noticing the tone of your emotions, the tone of your breath. Slowly roll your shoulders more towards the earth and press down to sit up and find an easy seat. And keeping your eyes closed, we'll return back to that sense of groundedness we had at the beginning of class, that sense of connection beneath our thighs, beneath our legs, beneath our pelvis. Finding our roots in a time of chaos and a time of change is vital. And as we move through this cycle, know that you can always connect with yourself through your breath and through movement. Gently take your hands to heart center. Let your thumbs press up against your sternum. Bow your head towards your heart. Know that we've all been through really hard phases in our lives before, and we have come through them with flying colors. You are strong, you are grounded, and you got this. All of the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste.